welcome back to my channel. My name's Michael, and today I want to talk about women in translation. I'm not much of a readathon type person. I don't normally like the challenges that they present, but what I love about women in translations month is it is a theme reading month where we're reading books that I generally read. So I like to see the community get involved in reading translations, reading books from around the world, and talking about the books that I generally read. So it is pretty exciting for me to see just how much this event has taken off. And I think this is the 7th year it's been going. I think this is about my 4th or 5th year that I've been doing it. I haven't been counting. But instead of doing a TBR, because I'm definitely someone that likes to pick and choose based on my mood and go from there, I just thought I'd show you a couple of books that are on my TBR shelf that I do really want to read, and hopefully I'll get through some of these in Women in Translation Month, and hopefully maybe inspire some more people to participate, even if it's just reading one book or talking about women in translation. There are many ways to participate, and it's not just about the reading, it's about talking about books from around the world. The book I'm currently reading now is The Book of Anna by Carmen Bolosa, translated by Samantha Schneen, and this is kind of like a sequel to Anna Karenina. Not quite, because we know how Anna Karenina ended up. It's more about a book that she was writing, and in the novel Anna Karenina you see her sometimes talking about this book that she's writing, and this is kind of a postmodernist take on what happened in that book and what happened afterwards. So that's the one I'm currently reading. I'm not that far into it, but definitely the one I'm going to be focusing on first. I really want to read Breasts and Eggs. I think most people have heard someone talk about this. This is by Mikio Kawaki, and this is translated by Sam Bett and David Boyd. And my book club that I go to is reading a book set in Japan by an English man, so I wanted to pick up a book by an actual Japanese writer, and this book is definitely one that I've been looking forward to checking out. So I grabbed that one, and it definitely seems like a book right up my alley. I won't go into the plot because I think most people know what this is about, or at least heard someone talk about it. This is a Thai book that I want to read called Bright, and this is by Jiawan Dimwana and translated by Mia Poposkill. And one of the biggest struggles is with reading translations a lot is trying to pronounce people's names. Obviously, this is, as I said, one of the first female Thai writers to appear in English, and I've seen so many people talk about this. It's been on my TBR for far too long. I want to see if I can get to it this month. I might try and read some Colette. This is Claudine in Paris, part of a Claudine series. This is translated by not Antonia White, and the Claudine series is probably her best known books of hers, and definitely want to get to more of her books. I think this book's been on my TBR for far too long. This is Go Went Gone by Jennifer Essenbeck, and this is translated from the German by Susan Boronsky, and I think this was on the International Booker Prize 2 or 3 years ago, and I think I picked it up then. I just never got to it, so I want to get into that probably soon. Inga Bachmann is probably a famous, I want to say German, but I can't actually remember. Well, that's very unprepared of me. Malina. This is translated, again, we have to go inside the book to find the translator, Philip Brome, and this is a modern classic post-war Vienna, and just talking about the, like, how do you explain, like the struggles of living in a post-war city with all the World War II stuff that has really gone and shook up the nation, and going into that. Magnus Sabo, I read The Door and really enjoyed it. She is a Hungarian writer, and this is translated, obviously, in this Rex again. And I actually don't know what this book is about. I just remember really enjoying The Door and wanting to pick up more of her books. So this one's definitely one high on the list of wanting to read. The Notebook by Agatha Christoph, and this is translated by Alan Sheridan. And this has got an afterword by Zulji Zizak, the philosopher. So this is the first part of a trilogy. I only have the first book in the trilogy, but definitely want to get to the rest of the Notebook trilogy. It's something I've been contemplating reading about a year or two, and I keep putting it off. I think I hadn't been in the right mood for it. It is probably going to be a very philosophical book, and I am still really wanting to read it, but part of me wants the whole trilogy to read at once, or part of me's a little worried about reading it, but definitely one worth checking out. Valerie Lucelli is an amazing writer, and this is a collection of essays of hers translated by Christina McSweeney, and I think this is the last of her books that have been translated into English that I would need to read. I haven't read her book she wrote in English called Lost Children Archive, but I definitely want to read that as well. But this is definitely worth trying to get to and checking out some of her nonfiction writing. Tove Jansson, definitely a writer that I need to read more of and really like what I've read of hers. I haven't read any of the Movement series. This is translated by a whole range of people. This is actually a collection of short stories of hers, so maybe that might put me off a little bit, but I definitely need to get to it. These are the books that I'm trying to read. I have a few more on my pile, but nothing that I would rate highly. I've got Beside Myself by Sasha Marianne Salzman, and translated from the German by Imogen Taylor, and I do want to get to it. It's not a high priority of mine, so it might not be in this month's reading, but it's one of those books that's where I just grabbed not all of them, but a lot of the books that I was curious to read for Women in Translation Month and chucked it in a pile and said, this is the books I'm going to focus on. Because I find if I don't plan it out, but I have a pile of books that I want to pick from, then I'm more likely to get through the books on that list. Obviously, there's going to be audiobooks and ebooks that might happen as well. These are just some of the books that I want to focus on. I won't go through and talk about all the ebooks or the audiobooks that I've saved on Scrib to read, because it's not as interesting to pull up an iPad or something and go, these are some of those that I'm interested in. But definitely looking forward to having conversations with people about Women in Translations Month, about the books they're reading. I love Women in Translations. I seem to focus on Women in Translation all year round. It's WIT forever for me, and I do read Men in Translation, but I like to try and keep a focus on women because it's so easy to shift the balance between male and female writers, because so many men are getting translated and there's so many books of theirs out there. I find that if I focus on Women in Translations, then I'm having a better experience of reading from around the world, from reading from different countries, and not spending all my time reading someone like Roberto Bolaño. Sorry, that's a reference to Derek. But I just like to make sure that I read from books all over the world. And unfortunately, there's not that many from Africa, and I think that is a problem with the publishing world as well. But let me know what you're reading for Women in Translation Month. Let me know if you read any of these books. If you're interested in reading any of these books, let's have conversations about these type of books this reading month and books in general. All my links to social media are in the description below. Please leave a comment in the comments. I think that's the best way for us to have conversations. I think we need to remind people that comments are probably the most useful for us as creators, because we get feedback. We get to talk to people about the books we're reading or talking about. And hopefully I'll do some more videos for Women in Translation Month. I'd like to do some reviews, maybe talk about some of those books that I love and really want to recommend to everyone. So hopefully I'll have some reviews up this month as well. Thank you all for watching, and make sure you read the world and enjoy Women in Translations Month. Goodbye.